Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our webinar today. I'm Marcia Butler, the webinar director here at Advice Chaser. We're so glad to have you as you come into the webinar room today. Before we introduce our guests and get started, I do need to do a little bit of legal housekeeping. Advice Chaser, the host of this webinar, is not a registered investment advisor. We cannot and do not give financial advice. Today's presentation is for educational purposes only and cannot be considered advice for any person's individual situation. Advice Chaser regularly hosts informative webinars, such as this one, featuring a variety of knowledgeable professionals, many of whom are licensed advisors. Any opinions, ideas, jokes, or principles expressed by presenters are their own, and however true, funny, or interesting are not endorsed by Advice Chaser. Please do not act on the information you hear today without consulting a qualified financial professional. Well, we're thrilled to bring you today's educational presentation. Attendees are muted, but we do encourage you to ask questions using the chat box, and the presenters will answer those queries during or after the webinar today as appropriate. If you ask a question in the chat box and we're not able to get to it, go ahead and leave your contact information as well. If we can't get to your question, again, as I said, we're happy to have someone reach out to you after today's event to make sure that gets addressed. We want this experience to be as educational as possible, so please don't hesitate to ask for clarification or expansion of the material. I'd love to introduce you to our guests today. Our moderator today is Sheldon Sweeney, and he's extremely passionate about helping families and their children with special needs. He connects with them on a personal level because his youngest daughter has Down syndrome. Sheldon enjoys helping families who are planning for retirement, as well as business owners who need advice on creating an exit plan while protecting the business they have built. Starting in 2012, Sheldon built his business at Pacific Capital Resource Group, Inc. in Bellevue, Washington, as a financial advisor, establishing niches. Sheldon then received an opportunity to move his business to Snyder Financial Group as a wealth advisor in 2019, and Sheldon and I have been on several webinars, so we've really focused on the community that is serving families with special needs. And so, Sheldon, why don't you go ahead and come on camera and say hello so people can see you.
Okay, thank you, Marcia, again. Thank you for hosting us. It's great to be here today, and I'm excited to hear this topic from Mary.
Very great, very good. Our presenter today is Mary Pratt Coons-Weiler Rackers, and she's been in the mortgage lending industry as a loan officer since 1996. Before becoming a lender, Mary worked for Merrill Lynch and also the banking industry, and as a mortgage broker with Washington First Mortgage Loan Corporation. Mary works with many great lenders to find the right program, rate, terms, and underwriting terms for her clients. She believes that a mortgage should be part of your overall financial plan and works with a team of professionals, each of whom supports setting up families for success. Mary has twin sons, one of whom is autistic, and an elderly parent in her mid-90s, so Mary knows firsthand about today's topic. Mary, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to you, and we're excited to have you here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, you guys. I have been asked to speak about purchasing a home for a loved one. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but adults or borrowers can buy a home for their disabled adult child or elderly parent. And there are some very interesting pricing bonuses, formatting bonuses, as far as how we can format the loan based on some Fannie Mae rules and guidelines. So your disabled or elderly loved one, you can buy the home for them. They don't have to necessarily live on their own. They can live with roommates. They can live with their brother or sister if you don't want your adult child to live on their own. Or the parent can also live with roommates or a full-time caregiver. You can even set up some kind of a situation where they have their own housing as well, right there on the property. The way that the program works is you have to qualify for the program. It's rather like purchasing a home of your own or a second home if you already own your own residence. They don't have to qualify for this property on their own. And that's the whole gist of the program. But again, they need to live in the home. They need to have the place as their primary residence. You don't have to live there at all, but they need to occupy it. That's the big caveat on this one. So a little more about the program. Now it's referred to by some as the Family Opportunity Mortgage, but it's a Fannie Mae, it's part of a Fannie Mae basic 30-year fixed program. It's part of just the conforming loan where it's called many different things. But there's a main guideline that Fannie Mae is going to come back with over and over and over again. It's that the purchase counts as owner occupied if, quote, a parent or legal guardian wanting to provide housing for their handicapped or disabled adult child or elderly parent. Now that's the sentence that it has to follow. It needs to be a single family residence. It can be a stick-built home by its own. It can be a condo. It can be a townhouse. It just can't be a multifamily type deal where it could be perceived as an investment property. The individual that you're buying it for, especially if it's an adult child and you want to help them set up some additional credit, they can be on the loan with you as well. Or in the case of a parent, sometimes it's a little bit of a sting when a parent can't buy their own home. So they can be an elderly parent. So they can be on the loan with you as well. You just have to be careful of credit guidelines. And of course, any mortgage, any way that you set up housing for your disabled adult child or your elderly parent, it needs to be part of an overall financial plan, which, Sheldon and I lean on him heavily to work with the families and really discuss what is our main goal here and how does this work with the outline that we have set up.
Yeah, I don't know, Mary, if that was an invite for me to just join you in the conversation real
Yes.
quick, but yeah, a lot of times if Mary and I are working with a client and something like this is anticipated, then I would use the financial plan to say, okay, where are we going to pull the money from for the down payment? How soon do we need to have that money prepared? We don't want to have it invested aggressively, like right up to the last minute, and then be open to market sway. So we'd want to have a firm idea about where the money is going to come from to potentially just be part of the down payment. And we want to make sure that it's not too much of a stretch for the family to do something like this. So ideally, the more runway time, the better, right, Mary? Just to have all the assets aligned properly, so this can be a smooth transaction.
Exactly. If you think this is something that is going to be, necessary for your family, plan way ahead. I personally have had, I've wondered about my son for years. What am I going to do? And when I found this program, oh, fantastic. Okay, let's put things in place so that it's available in 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10 years, depending on the planning for your child or your parent. Now, and the last thing you want to do is liquidated annuity or something, right, Sheldon?
I know, that's right. So
We
So a
did
little
have
more about the program.
Before we go on, Mary, we did have a question. So if the elderly parent or the disabled adult is on the mortgage as well, does that mean that, say, that parent or child, whoever is paying the mortgage, that that person would be like a joint owner and also financially responsible for that mortgage, say if that other person is not able to take care of it? There's a question there about that.
Well, yes, that is. So there are pros and cons to putting the child or the parent on the loan. Yes, they would be responsible as a co-borrower on the payment. So one of the things that I would do is set up some kind of an account which automatically paid for this property if that's the type of financial outline that you've done. Now, in the case of my son, for example, he happens to work. So it's a delicate balance between, all right, he wants to help with payments versus they can't help with payments. Personally, I want to put him on the loan so that if anything should happen to me, he's right on the property and you don't have to go through multiple estate type situations to try and make sure that they stay in the home. That's a little more than, I would pull in an estate planner. As far as, you could move it into a trust maybe for the child or the parent. But yes, bottom line, if the other person's name is on it, they are responsible. So you'll want to really set up some strong safety nets to make sure that you're not putting them in a bad spot. Does that?
Yeah, well, I think it really spells out why it's so specific to each planning case. Each family is going to need a specific way to do this, because like with my daughter, she has Down syndrome, so she receives government benefits and everything. So her need to like increase credit or have ownership, she really can't do that, right? Like if her net worth is beyond
You've got
$2,000. Yeah. So
it's so individual. The whole thing, and when I found out about this program, wow, great, this program's out there. Oh, wow, hold on. It's going to be a little bit different for every family. So having it, pulling in your financial consultant, pulling in your CPA, pulling in your family trust or will advisor, and having that team, even an attorney that specializes with special needs is a good one to have on your team. And as anyone with a special needs child knows, it takes a village in so many ways to set up the financial plan, as well as just to get through all the hoops with government benefits and different things like that. So a couple of things, a lot of people ask me, well, why not just buy an investment property? And you could, but there are pros and cons, of course, for everything. Now, if you purchase this home as an owner-occupied residence under the Fannie Mae program and put your adult child or elderly parent in that home, the down payment is greatly different. It's as low as 5% down. And now there are at times some programs that are even as low as 3% down. They're not always available. They're not available with every lender. So we wanted to stick with the 5% down as it's more readily available. The interest rates are better because it's considered a primary residence. When you have a mortgage, there are layers to pricing. And one of the layers that will affect your pricing is primary residence versus investment property. How much risk is there? So the investment property is always going to have a higher interest rate. You can go with a 15-year fixed, a 30-year fixed. You can go with an adjustable rate mortgage. Sometimes adjustable rate mortgages make more sense. Again, it depends on what are you going to use the property for? What is the picture that you have of that property? And a lot of times, once you find the property, it'll answer those questions for you. And then lastly, we wanted to address capital gains, because if you buy it as an owner occupied property, as long as you have an individual, your elderly adult or your elderly parent or your disabled adult child living in the property for 2 years or more, you're not going to get hit with those capital gains, which you're going to get hit with on an investment property. But as always, ask your CPA, because the rules change on that all the time. Now,
yeah, I mean, that's another common refrain that Mary and I both have, is always deferring to a tax expert, because neither of us prepare tax documents. So it's always best to check with a CPA, because sometimes, I mean, I think as a financial planning principle, we don't want taxes to always steer all the decisions, as we don't want investments to steer all the decisions or real estate to steer all the decisions. So it's having all these areas in balance is what helps from a financial planning perspective. And I just wanted to toss that in there.
yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny, I don't know who I call more, Sheldon for financial consulting advice or my CPA for tax advice, because I know things are going to change all the time. So you've just got to be really careful. Now, I wanted to just touch on how to qualify for the program. It is a Fannie Mae program, so it follows the basic guidelines. You need to have established credit, and the credit scores are going to be a little bit different depending on your down payment, as well as the type of property. So as long as you have established credit, you pay your bills on time, you should be just fine. Again, down payment of at least 5%. There are, and I wanted to throw out there as well, again, 3%, as well as there are some bond and down payment assistance programs out there, but they're going to be different depending on the state, the county, et cetera, that you live in. So you've really got to be careful about those, and working with an experienced person in your area will really help you out on that. And then you're going to have enough income to qualify based on you, the individual buyer's financial outlines. So if you already own your home, you're going to have that mortgage, those auto payments, credit cards, student loans, all those things can affect you if you are co-signing for student loans. They might not be yours, but you've co-signed for them. So they're going to be part of that whole qualifying package. And that's going to put you into that acceptable debt to income ratio, which has to follow the Fannie Mae guidelines. Other considerations, as I mentioned, work with a qualified lender who has experience in these loans. There are a lot of lenders out there, and oh yeah, sure, no problem. But every lender needs to know how to put together the specific loan in order to avoid any red flags, in order to not drive your clients absolutely nuts having to go back and forth with, asking for a letter of explanation or proof of disabilities or proof that your parent is this age or does not have this income. You really need to work with someone that understands the challenges that come with having a family member like this, as well as doing the program themselves. So, but if you check with your local federal and state guidelines, you're going to have a few different overlays, I'll say, because, for example, I myself I'm in King County, Washington, and yeah, we have some great programs here. They're not going to be available elsewhere. So definitely check locally.
All right, I think we have some time for questions now. So I'm just going to go ahead and send Sheldon a couple of these questions.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited to see. Okay, one of the first questions, Mary, for you is how about the HOAs? Do they play into this kind of decision process?
So when you're looking at properties, yeah, you're going to have different additional fees that come with different types of properties. If you buy a single family residence, you know, these days, a lot of them have HOAs as well because they're in neighborhoods. So you really want to look and see, all right, not only am I going to have the purchase price, but taxes, insurance. If you put less than 20% down, you'll have mortgage insurance. And then yes, HOAs, which could vary. If you're in a single family residence, they might be maybe $50 a month or something like that, all the way up to hundreds of dollars a month if you go with a condo or a townhouse. So part of the financial plan is it's not just the purchase price. It's not just the loan, which would be the principal plus interest, but what other layers are you going to have to worry about as far as that monthly payment? And it adds up.
But I mean, I guess an HOA wouldn't, if it's owner occupied, then an HOA is probably not going to have an issue so much with the.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was thinking numbers.
It's not a rental.
No. So an HOA, I apologize. Yeah, HOAs, they're all going to have their own rules and regulations. You're buying an owner occupied property. You will want to double check. Are they going to let you rent out additional rooms for, say, you know, if you buy it for your adult child, are you going to want to rent out additional rooms so they're not living on their own?
All right.
Handicapped individuals.
Sorry there. It looks like you froze for a little bit. So you were just talking about, no, that's okay. You were talking about roommates. Can you repeat that part again?
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what happened. We do have bad weather here today, so maybe it froze, literally froze. Anyway, you do want to double check with the HOA, their rules and regulations to ensure that they're going to allow roommates if you have an adult child that you don't want living on their own. Are they going to allow ramps or any other type of equipment that you're going to need for your handicapped child or a handicapped elderly adult? So condos tend to be a little tougher on those things. Townhouses, it's just really going to depend. You're going to want to get a hold of the CCNRs and really read those as part of your due diligence.
Yeah, I think the roommate piece too, I've seen that come into play a lot where they'll even need to be like a caretaker. So that would probably qualify as an extra person in the house and all that. So yeah, lots to consider.
They're not a relative, so it may bite you, right?
Let's see, next question. What about building a home on a property that you already own for a loved one? Does this sort of program apply to this?
So this is not a new construction loan. A new construction loan would be a little bit different, and you certainly could build a property on your own. You could go through the new construction process and then maybe put it into a trust, maybe change it into this kind of a financing after the new construction process. But construction loans are going to be a different beast. And you're probably going, if you already own a home, you're going to have to qualify on a construction loan as though it were a second home.
Okay, so this program is just about an existing home, and
it is. Yeah, new construction is and not every lender will do a new construction loan, so the rules are going to be very specific to the lender themselves. I used to do a lot of new construction, so those rules have really tightened up with COVID. There's some tough hoops to jump through right now on new construction.
All right, well, that's a good clarification. Thank you. What happens if your disabled adult child or elderly parent passes away? What happens to the property under this program?
So the whole thing with this program is, what is the intent of the purchase? You need to really show the lender that you are buying this for your adult disabled or special needs child or your elderly parent. There's no way of knowing what's going to happen down the road, and the lender will understand that. You can keep the home, use it as an investment property. You could move another family member into it, but the whole thing is intent. Now, if something happens a month after you close, you're going to have some red flags popping up. But if it's 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you can use it for what you need to use it for. You do not have to sell it. It doesn't have a balloon to it. You don't have to refinance out of this program. As long as you've used it for the original reason for a good duration of time, you should be just fine. Is that a good way of saying that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to me, that just means that, I mean, as you said, you can't predict the future. You don't know what life's going to bring. But assuming everyone enters in the program like on the up and up and with the best intentions, then there's flexibility that you can deal with situations. So that's good.
Yeah,
it's good to know.
I mean, if I were to do something like this, you know, my son's 23 right now. If I were to do something like this and put him in a house and find out after 2 years, wow, he is not able to be on his own, or the roommate situation just isn't really working, I can move him into something else, a different situation, and I'm still going to have the house. I'm still going to have the mortgage as well.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Cool.
But it's just such a great way to get housing for individuals that wouldn't be able to buy it on their own. You know,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, and here's kind of a lead-in question. As someone enters into a process like this, even to get qualified, is there a more lengthy qualification process, or what does it look like to get approved in terms of a range of how long it might take?
Yeah, getting approved shouldn't take very long at all. Usually just make loan application, have your credit run, and if you submit your documentation of tax returns and income, I mean, it's just going to depend on you as an individual. Are you a W-2? Are you a 1099? That will determine how much documentation you need to give. And, you know, a good loan officer should be able to look at the whole package and be able to figure out relatively quickly, hey, you have the wiggle room, we can absolutely do this. Or, you know, let me run this past an underwriter. Let me absolutely make sure that this is a go-ahead for you. That would be a pre-approval or an approval process, and then go shopping. You know, you should be able to get the go-ahead as far as numbers, 24 to 48 hours, depending on the lender that you're working with.
Nice. Okay, so not too far outside the scope of a traditional.
No, it basically is a traditional loan. I mean, it's just a little more complicated because you're adding in another property. If you already own a place, you're adding in another property. But I myself, I could probably do it just in one day of, you know, turning off the phone, closing the door, and really focusing on it. But some banks tend to take a little bit longer because they have a few more hoops that they want to jump through as far as approval process.
Well, that's all the questions we have for now. And I just wanted to thank both of you for being here. What an informative webinar we've had today. I want to thank the organizations that have made this presentation possible today. And also thank the attendees for attending. Look for an email soon with a link to the replay of this event. And you're welcome to share that replay with friends and family. Here at Advice Chaser, we're all about helping you find a financial advisor who's a great fit for your life and your financial questions. Our matching service is free to you, and every one of our advisor partners has committed to offer a free initial consultation to anyone we introduce them to. Find out more by going to advicechaser.com. and clicking on the link to find an advisor. So once again, from Advice Chaser, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you at another webinar soon.